Good afternoon, everybody on the East Coast. Good morning if you're on the West Coast. Episode 40 of the Weekly Ward. As always, I'm Dan Ward, your host, and on the left of me, the co-host, Mr. Daddy. What's going on today? How we doing?
How's it going?
We're pretty excited. I know you're going to be going out to Indianapolis this weekend.
Yeah, Indianapolis for the SCG Open with Kaladesh Standard.
I'm heading down to George Mason University to do some testing with a bunch of friends and some colleagues that are getting ready for the PT.
That's so randomly far away. Why are you going there?
Well, you know, there's really nowhere else to go around here to get that kind of quality testing as far as being with a lot of people that are qualified and that have stayed on the train for a while. So this is my first time being able to do it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it is like a 5-6 hour drive for me.
Who are you testing with? Or is it, you don't want to say?
What do you mean? This weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a bunch of guys. Alex Magetan formed a group. I think Pat Cox can be down there. Chris
okay.
Kukula. There's like, I think 30 to 35 people. One of my teammates, Nate Thomas, is going to be there. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, I know.
You know Nate?
Yeah, it's Nate Sturm.
Yeah.
I think Nate Thomas is his like Facebook.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah. No, Nate's cool.
Nate's gas.
I beat him in.
Uh-oh. An I beat him story. Can we get the ticker I won?
The Legacy Champs that I won with Red Blue Delver. It was just a really weird game. I like Hardcast Force, Hardcast Pyrokinesis, Hardcast Force. That was like how the game played out. He was
Gross.
like Knight, some other thing, another big creature equipment or whatever.
So question, have you ever cast Delver in Standard?
Yeah.
What about Vintage?
I haven't played a game.
Or Commander?
Vintage. I've played Commander. I played Delver in Tiny Leaders.
Your achievement, it should say on your Wizards page for Planeswalker points, achievement unlocked when you play Delver in every single format. That'll be great.
Delver's great.
Draft Camp, yeah. So, as you can see, we've got a couple topics we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about some gainers and losers today. Our opinions on maybe just generals as well as some actual specific cards. We're going to get into new standard. Like I said before, you're getting ready for Indy. I think everyone's been waiting for a standard tournament so we can kind of have like the bar. And kind of like, it's interesting because this is like the first time in like the last 2 to 3 Pro Tours where because of Star City Games is going to be hosting GP Atlanta, that there's not like an Envy or an Open right before the PT. So this is like...
Well, there is an Open right before the PT.
Well, this is it. But I mean the week before the PT. It's traditionally the week right before the Pro Tour. So this is going to give like actually ton of time between having the first Open and actually the Pro Tour because of the limited Grand Prix. So you're going to see, in my opinion, a lot of week 1 decks, and it's not going to be as close to, you know, the meta at the Pro Tour. Like, they're usually not.
Let's try to think back to Eldritch Moon and how it worked out. So what was the first...
Eldritch Moon?
The first event with Eldritch Moon was Columbus.
Sure. That was the week prior to the Pro Tour. And the one before that...
No, the next weekend was Baltimore, and then the Pro Tour.
One of them was Modern. There was only one Standard.
They were both Standard.
They were both Standard?
Yeah, I promise you, they were both Standard.
Okay.
Which is unusual, I think. Well, maybe not unusual, because in Shadows there was Baltimore, which was release weekend. Then there was the Envy in Columbus, in the reverse order. So like when Shadows came out, it was like Baltimore, Columbus, Pro Tour. When Eldritch Moon came out, it was Columbus, Baltimore, Pro Tour.
Yeah, Baltimore was the week before PT.
And this time it'll just be Indy Limited GP Pro Tour. So there's one less event, but it doesn't really matter, I don't think, because the second event is just people reacting to the first event and not really reacting to like attacking the format as a whole. If that makes sense to you?
Yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting though because with 2 sets leaving and the new set coming in, like a lot of people realize that like, hey, Collected Company's still going to be a deck. So they had some things like baselines. Like right now, there's still like a couple decks, and we'll kind of get into it here. We're going to jump in ahead. But there's still a couple decks that people are like, hey, there will be this archetype in some form or fashion. Mm-hmm. However, in my opinion, there's not like a number 1 deck right now. Like, there's not a deck that people are, like, going into Indy stating, like, this is the best deck, or this is the most played deck, and, you know, that, so.
Well, when Shadows came out, did that happen?
Shadows... That was Pro Tour Madrid?
When cons rotated out. Yeah, I guess was Pro Tour Madrid. Was it Steve Rubin?
Yeah, the green-white deck.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was. I think Bant Company was the monster because it did so well at the Invitational.
Yeah, but before the set came out, no one was like, "Oh my God, Bant Company is just going to be perfectly broken and no one's going to be able to beat it." No one said that.
Not before the set, but before the PT is what I mean. Because like obviously, so many people played it at the Invitational, like myself and yourself, and we both did very well with it. I know your team and your teammates did extremely well. At the tournament, and I felt like going into that tournament, it was like 25% of the meta was playing that deck.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just feel like
it was the hands down best deck going into the Pro Tour.
I feel like it's a little bit of a bold statement, I guess, but I don't think, regardless of what happens this week, Indianapolis, that there will be that kind of buzz over a deck going into the PT.
Is that better or everyone thought vampires. Red-black vampires was going to be the thing. Remember?
Yeah, I remember when it first came out, and they were like, vampires.
Olivia's insane, blah, blah, blah.
Drana.
I literally have not seen a copy of Olivia in like 6 months.
Maybe it's going to change.
Maybe they're all... someone bought them all.
Maybe Olivia got the key to the city.
Someone just bought them all. Is that card still legal? Yes, right?
Key?
Olivia mobilized for war or whatever?
Yeah, of course. It's in Shadows. It's still around and kicking. And Drana, too, the 3 drops that got their back. So.
Humans. People talked about humans a lot.
All right, well, we'll get back into Standard here in a little bit. Let's start off with some gainers and losers. So we kind of alluded...
Segue.
Yeah, we kind of alluded to this last week. We ran out of a little bit of time. However, we got new Standard. This is going to be the first Premier tournament. I've got a couple cards. You've got some, I guess, generals.
I've got some cards, but I also have, basically some strategies that are better, and then I've got some strategies that are worse, and a specific card that exemplifies that in each case. Okay,
so do you want to start off with some cards here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start off. Let's go over the cards that we think are losers. So I'll kind of go off. If you have a couple, we can kind of go back and forth here and shoot a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So, not in any particular order. I'll go through them. My first loser is Thought Not Seer. I'm not a big fan of this card moving forward. We lost all of the Pain lands, which makes it really tough to be able to play 2 colors and waste. So you have to focus your deck on playing 1 color, essentially, or 1.5 with the waste color. A waste being your second source. And it's kind of funny, people are probably like, well, what do you mean Aether Hub's in? And yes, Aether Hub is really good. However, the cost at playing all of the other waste lands that you're going to have to play in your deck are coming at a rather large cost, in my opinion. So I just think that that's something that is going to take a back burner in Standard.
Yeah, I think that the cost of playing... whatever they want to call it, wingdings, waste mana, whatever, definitely increases. I'd agree with you in that regard. But I also think that, as far as Thought Not Seer itself is concerned, the format is, it just seems good in the format. The card itself. The
card itself, if you can figure out the way to get the mana great, then I believe the card will be great. And I agree with you. I think that it's actually, poised for the format. I just don't think that that's going to happen.
It was one of the cards that in my early testing, every time I played it, it was good, and I actively wanted to put more in the deck that I was testing.
You may or may not have had Harmonicon or that card in your deck.
When you're Thought Not Seer a million things out of their hand,
so you just take everything in their hand? Okay.
It also just kills them in the one deck I'm testing, which is kind of funny. And you just get infinite Eldrazi Scions and then target Thought Not Seer with the blink over and over and over, and they try to kill it in response, and you just target it over and over and over. Jeez. Like Lynch when he's like, you want to run through someone over and over and over. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over. But yeah, I agree with you that Thought Not Seer is going to see less play. I think that its relative power level in the format, it's increasing, but I think it does stand to lose more because of the circumstances surrounding it, like the mana and stuff like that.
Sure.
And I think the cost of waste mana has gone way up in this regard.
Okay.
I think we're seeing stuff like Hedron Crawler in decks, which was like kind of a laughable thing earlier on, but now is like. Also, like the loss of the pain lands is pretty important. And I don't want to get too off the gainers and losers, but the pain lands are really important. You'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, they were able to do things with your mana, like stretching it in different ways that you just can't do now. And, like, you know, the two premier cards that I can think of, Thought-Knot Seer and Reality Smasher, are, you know, cards that everyone in the mid-range to, you know, slightly aggressive, but more of a mid-range style strategy want to play those kind of cards. And they're really outclass everything else at that mana cost, but it's... you know, really tough to do that when you don't consistently have the mana to do that. And like you said, Hedron Crawler, when you're jamming that guy in your deck,
not a great matchup
into you know, decks that have like Liliana, it seems really bad. So,
but you've also got like and that gives me a good idea for a gainer because it's a little subtle. I'll talk about that later on then. But,
okay,
got cards that also use waste mana that like. Were like kind of like I don't know, the best way to put this I guess is like Matter Reshaper and Displacer. Like Matter Reshaper was in every like Cryptolith Right type deck because they just could play like 15 pain lands at no cost or whatever.
Sure.
And like that card is still a fine Magic card, and if the format is speeding up, it's a solid blocker and stuff.
Yeah.
But like it's much harder to actually play that card. Whereas Displacer like doesn't get Dromoka's commanded when you play it as often. Like it's easier to keep it alive. I think if you're trying hard enough to keep it alive, there's no company. Like company was both good and bad for Displacer, but like Displacer I think is a very powerful card in the new format. But like you can no longer play like 4 colors and Displacer, and you know you have to like.
I got one other loser, and then if you want to shout out a couple of your losers, and it's crazy because it almost won the last Pro Tour. Emrakul the Promised End. I think it was a card that dominated the you know last standard, but you know Collected Company you know wins the award of dominating, I guess, but really hit hard at the last Pro Tour in Sydney, and it's been a card that I really have been following because who doesn't like playing big spaghetti monsters that take people's turns?
A very polarizing card. A lot of people really like it. A lot of people really hate it.
Yeah.
It just does something so unique to the format.
Yeah, and so...
that is definitely always on people's radar.
With losing... so there's a bunch of things happening. So the Temerge decks are losing a lot of cards. They're losing Gather. They're losing Nissa's Pilgrimage. I think there still will be a deck. Jace is a huge one. Trying to get the Kozilek's Return in your graveyard and being able to, you know, loot out to get to lands and stuff.
The Flip Nissas, which, like, were good at doing... you know, slightly different things than the rest of the deck, which makes the deck like that much harder to attack because they can fight you from different angles and stuff. I think Nissa was really important to that deck.
No, I agree. And just, there's different tools now. Like, yes, Infinite Obliteration is gone, but there's Life's Legacy, and there's a counterspell for 1 blue that says counter target colorless spell. And that card in itself, I think, like, there will be blue decks. Unlike the last format, you know, there was Collected Company, which was basically just splashing blue for, like, Reflector Mage.
For a while. I think that it changed throughout the course of the format.
Yeah.
When it became, like, Spell Queller, as well as... like, some of the Japanese decks had, like, 4 Jaces, 4 Spell Quellers, and, like, Ojutai's Commands and stuff. And that's, like, a little more than a splash at that point. But regardless, the mana was... like able to facilitate it. The mana was like good and blah, blah, blah.
So with like this counterspell and with the introduction of like an actual 1 or 2 that I've seen, legitimate aggressive decks.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's going to be, you know, it's going to be a tough thing to have that card in your deck and that be your finishing touch as like your win con. I don't think like everyone will give up. I'm pretty sure like that card will still see some play this weekend. It'll still see some play at the Pro Tour. But I just think that it's definitely going to go down a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. I agree in that regard. I think that...
what's going on, dude? We're both agreeing here? This is crazy.
Well, I had Emerge / Delirium as a loser on my sheet as well.
Okay.
I thought that it basically just puts a lot of pressure on Grapple.
Sure.
And that it's harder. And, well, Vessel becomes a 4 of now when it was only a 2 of previously or whatever. So like
Sure.
you can still enable Emerge, but it just seems like it just got a little worse. Like the other decks are faster. There's like things like vehicles that aren't guaranteed to get hit by the flashback K return if they do it carefully or whatever. Like they're the mana's a little bit worse. Like Maya Coast was good. Now you have the fast land, but then you don't have waste mana for like if you play Reshaper or whatever.
Sure.
You know, I just think that that the ways to get stuff out of the graveyard are the ways to get stuff into the graveyard is like less good, and like something like Gather where you just guaranteed to get not guaranteed, but every time you hit it, get 2 creatures. It's just unbelievably powerful. Yeah. They don't even need to like Emrakul anymore. They'll just like get 2 creatures and like cast every Deep Fiend in their deck and kill you that way.
Ishkana and just go so wide that
and
doesn't
just
matter.
loop on it. But like the enablers got a little bit worse for sure, and I think that the format speeding up means that like your 3rd turn Pilgrim's Eye is like less likely to be a reasonable thing. Like sometimes you play 3rd turn Pilgrim's Eye and are literally under no pressure. They would like untap and play Tireless Tracker after you play Pilgrim's Eye. And like that was the first play of the game for each person.
Yeah.
It's just like weird. But I think the format's much faster now. I think people are doing crazy stuff with their graveyard with Haunted Deads and that artifact that has a black activation cost. It's like a 3/2 Scrounger, Scrap Heap Scrounger is the name of it. That card is good. Card is very good. I didn't realize how good that card was. But yeah, we're definitely standing to see. I think anything mopey and Emerge does kind of like when it's not played by majors, it does like kind of seem mopey to me in a lot of respects.
Okay.
And I think something like that is something that you don't necessarily want to be doing week 1. Because while proactivity is important, and if you can reliably like be flashing back Kozilek's Return and be like, you know, like gung ho, making sure that you can flash back your return and wrath their board like reliably and effectively with like a good creature, then yeah, like that's a great place to be week 1 because you're doing something focused. You have Deep Fiends, like you can get people dead. You know, it's a good spot to be. But like if you miss a lot on that deck, you're just not really flashing back your returns in a reasonable time frame. You're just kind of dirtling around for a little while and then dying, whatever, you know? Like, it just seems like it's a tough deck to misbuild week 1. Whereas it seems like it could be a really good deck if you hit exactly correctly.
Yeah.
But it's one of the decks that is remaining intact, but is not building itself going forward.
Sure.
And I don't necessarily think that the previous rotations had that happen either so much. Like the first week I saw a ton of Band Company decks. When we built our Sweet Band Company deck, I saw a ton of less than Sweet Band Company decks.
Sure,
they were like ones with like Death Miss Raptor in them and all sorts of stuff like that.
Sure.
Like 18 3-drops or no Duskwatch Recruiters or whatever. But the point just being that like not everybody knows what to do right week 1, and I think the cost of misbuilding something like a Merge or a Delirium deck is pretty crippling.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It was a little long-winded, but you get where I'm going, right?
Yeah, definitely. You want to keep it simple, stupid, on the first week, and not try to like overdo it with this.
I think that people are starting to grasp the fact that being proactive, that being proactive is very good week 1. Being aggressive is very good week 1, and those two things aren't necessarily the same thing. Sure. And I think that's something that people are kind of yet to grasp. They'll say like, oh, like, you know, control deck is bad week 1. And in a lot of ways that's true, but something like Esper Dragons, where like you are like a control deck that just kills them with Ojutai, like that, something like that is more justifiable week 1. Something like Jeskai Black, that's like a control deck that can kill people. Sure. You know, that type of deck is much better week 1 than a flat out control deck. And like proactivity doesn't always mean aggression. So like just being super focused and like maybe even in a combo, you know, with a combo or with milling yourself to cast Emrakul on turn 6 or whatever you want to do. Like just being super directed towards something and executing your plan well and forcing your opponents to have answers for your plan is a good spot to be week 1.
Agreed.
You don't always have to be mono red, you know?
Yeah, that's very true. All right, any more losers that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a couple more. They're basically losers because of a couple strategical shifts that I anticipate occurring in the format.
Okay.
And basically, I think that because this is a faster format, there's a lot of artifacts being introduced into the format as a whole. There's a lot of shifts in what people are doing to develop their board in the early game. We've got vehicles that have like ridiculous rates, 2 mana 3/3 flyer or whatever.
Sure.
3 mana 5/5, blah blah blah, etc. So like we have these things happening, and then like the old mono white humans beatdown deck is just like not what it used to be. I think humans is a huge loser in this format. I think we lost Archangel of Tithes, Knight of the White Orchid, which let them play such a super low land count. They still got a justifiable amount of 1-drop 2/1s, right? Like they have.
Yeah, they have that, and like one of the gains for the deck, I think in general, is that Dromoka's Command's gone. So always watching is huge.
Yeah, Dromoka's Command is gone, but a lot of the
Hey, thanks a lot for the follow.
a lot of the games that Dromoka's Command decks played against the humans decks were like won or lost more on the axis of 1-drop, 1-drop, 1-drop than always watching. So like, yeah, Dromoka's Commanding always watching is great, but if you're Dromoka's Commanding always watching, so you take 6 instead of 9 and don't even have a creature in play to fight with it, like
Sure.
it's not great. Like, but I think
For me, it's always been like, hey, I'm blocking. You move to blocks with like a 3/3 on their 3/3. You have it fight a different creature, sack an enchantment, and you get their creature. You fought a creature, and you block and kill the creature.
Yeah, you can like eat their entire board.
That's what I mean. It was just like so insane.
Of course.
So, Ben Feinhurst in chat here is saying that if you're not ready for red-white race cards, then you will get run over. So definitely be prepared. I think, Kevin's just saying, like, you don't necessarily have to play the mono red or the mono white decks to be proactive, and that they shouldn't be paired proactive and aggressive in the same context. Yep. But definitely be prepared for an aggressive strategy. All right, so we got humans. We got humans as a loser.
A little bit inflammatory and yell at Ben right now. Not exactly yell, but like. So, the thing about being like the aggressive, the red-white vehicles or mono-red or whatever the default aggro deck. Yeah, see, our red deck wins is faster and just as effective. Whatever deck that is.
It's a little too early for that.
Yeah.
Omar, I love you, but we'll see.
Whatever deck that is doesn't matter so much as it matters that like these are the decks that you can build that are effective in the first week without actually preparing.
Sure.
Like these are the decks that people can copy from an SCG's premium article and be like, oh, I'm just gonna play this and like not really know what's going on. And like you can test for weeks and figure out like a better angle of proactivity that's not mono red. But like most people who enter opens aren't gonna do that. They're just gonna like copy the mono red deck. And, like, the ceiling for a deck like that is lower than the ceiling for, like, a Merge or that weird blue-red artifact deck, which we can talk about soon. I don't know if you saw that deck, but it just makes, like, a bias towards people thinking that, again, that, like, the red aggro decks are the best in week 1. And, like, the reason why they are is because, they're easier to play usually. They're easier to build usually because you go, does this roast me? Does this roast my opponent? Does this set my opponent on fire? Does this set my opponent... Oh, does this deal direct damage? Does this set my opponent literally on fire? Oh, okay, good. Then put them in my deck. Does it not? Okay, good. Fine. I won't put that in my deck. But, like, the mana bases when you're doing other things are, like, the mana bases for other decks are so much worse. And
yeah, like, when you're just like, okay, I'm going to put 18 mountains in my deck. How wrong can I be when my curve ends at 3?
Yeah.
Like,
if you have the wrong... Like, if you have Fleet Wheel Cruiser and you're supposed to actually have Chandra if you tested for another 4 days or whatever, like, you're not missing by that much. You're still, like, you might lose a game here or there where you get, like, Wrath or something, but even that thing is immune to Sorcerer Speed removal the same way a Planeswalker is. So, like, I don't know. What I mean is just people are quick to tout the effectiveness of the burn deck or whatever you want to call it. The red deck wins strategy in the first week, whereas just being focused on doing something powerful and forcing your opponent to beat it is really where you want to be.
Sure.
more so than any specific strategy.
Okay. All right, so we talked about a few losers. Now let's talk about some gainers. Why don't you hit me off with a couple?
I had one more loser that is actually inspired by testing.
Okay,
which
let's
is good,
talk about
other
the
than
loser.
my
Then.
nonsense
The
theory.
last loser.
The last loser. And it pains me to say it because I really love this card. I think that Spell Queller, provided that people are doing like, Banty Tameo things,
Sure.
stands to lose a little bit. Because like, there's way less flash cards that you can naturally put in your deck without focusing your deck on being a flash deck.
Okay.
And as a result, you end up telegraphing Spell Queller a huge amount of the time. And maybe that means that you need to like put people in spots where you're going to pinch them, and they're not going to know, what 3-mana flash spell you have. Whether that means playing like Neeblegast Herald, Rattle Chains, and like some more spirits. Maybe it means playing like Stasis Snare, or opening up to like Avacyn or something like that, and just having a lot more flash cards in your deck is a reasonable thing to be doing. But like I think that the chances that Spell Queller was living a lot more in our testing, but it also like just was really obvious when they had it, and they could just like you couldn't cash out like you could in the previous format. You'd be like, oh well, I'll just like use this Duskwatch Recruiter, or I'll just like cast this Company, or use my Dromoka's Command, or whatever. But
sure,
you can't do that. So I think that if decks are being built the way that they were being built in the testing games that I've played and that I've seen played, I think Spell Queller stands to lose because it just becomes a much higher cost to leave up your 3 mana, especially when a format's speeding up like this one. So yeah, hopefully people can figure out how to do that. But how to make Queller good, I think you can. But as is, it doesn't look particularly great.
Seagal's in the chats and congratulating you on being a national hero.
Thank you. America. And it's very exciting.
For those of you that didn't know, Kevin is going to be representing Team USA on our national team versus the world. And 2 weeks ago now, we both crushed a tournament. You really crushed it. I like semi-crushed it.
Yeah.
And
you lost to Spell Queller in
I did. So I lost to the biggest loser. So Dan Ward starring the biggest loser here, Spell Queller. All right, let's talk about gainers. You want to go over a couple that you have, and then I'll kind of like get into it at the end of a couple cards that I have as gaining.
I know we had a meeting about not interrupting you or derailing you before we started the show.
Okay.
So like it's super important in this episode that I don't interrupt you or derail you.
Okay.
But I boarded in Painful Truths against the Spell Queller guy in top 4 of the WMCQ, and it's just the funniest thing ever.
Ooh, okay, so the card's just very good versus him, though.
Yeah, but like if he ever Spell Quellers it, it's just hard countered.
Sure, but like that's fine. You're never casting it into his 3 mana, I would hope.
No, probably not. I mean,
are you just saying that you like played really loose and got lucky? Or are you saying that you deliberately put a bad card in your deck to see if you could level the playing field?
I'm just saying that you can't not board in Painful Truths against a deck full of removal. Like, you can't not board that card in against a Jeskai deck. You're boarding in a land and all this stuff.
Yeah, I would expect you to. I kept mine in. I had Painful Truths in my main. I kept it in.
Yeah, I think it's fine in that matchup. It's just really funny that, like, we're playing, this important tournament where the winner of the tournament goes to the World Cup team.
Sure.
And, like, the thing I'm like, stressing over is, like, oh man, I hope I don't get my Painful Truths like hard countered. I'm like, what stupid standard format are we playing right now? It's just like the weirdest thing to have to worry about. And I just thought that was super funny. But hey, let's get to gainers.
Gainers! So it is bulking season for those of you out there. And I got a few cards that I think
That's
are
what
gaining.
you were thinking about?
Bulking season.
I was thinking about what is it called? Like, it's like, that's called a gainer, right? Doing like a front flip or a back flip, but running forwards.
Yeah.
Like, what is a shooting star? Shane O'Mac. That was thing. That's a gainer, right?
Yeah, the shooting star is a little different, but yeah.
But like off the top rope, jump forward, flip backwards is a gainer.
That's what that's called,
right?
Sure, but I'll take your word for it.
No
one knows what gainer is.
We got more.
If someone gets in the chat and knows, then we'll get there. So.
We got more singing praise in the chat for the hypothetical episode, which is just funny because
oh my god,
everybody else hated it.
NASCAR father, what's up? That's all I got to say about the hypotheticals.
Right. So I think that A type of card standing to gain a whole bunch from the rotation is just cards with the type enchantment.
Okay.
Some prime examples of this are Always Watching, which I think is no longer limited to being in the 20 planes 1-drop human deck.
Okay.
I think you'll see 2-color decks that play it. I think that its viability hinges on 2 things. One of the things, the football analogy, ha ha ha. One of the things it hinges on is how good vehicles and like tokens are, because I don't really like Smuggler's Copter into Always Watching just isn't really what I want to be doing.
Sure.
It just seems awkward, and like Always Watching in your like Pia Nalar deck is a little different than Always Watching in like your Eldrazi Sky Spawner deck, because like Always Watching in your Sky Spawner deck, like the token is intended to be disposed of, whereas like the token in like the evasive creature is the body and the token is the excess, whereas like with Pia the token is the evasive creature and the like blocker or whatever body is the regular card. So like you end up with like a 3/3 Pia that can't attack on the ground and a 1/1 token that like doesn't have vigilance or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm following
so like it's
you
just
here.
kind of awkward there. So I think that there's still some things that leave Always Watching's viability in question, but I do think that the format is overall like better for enchantments, and that's one of them. That also you got like the Loss of Collected Company makes like decks that are creature heavy, like in green white, or you know maybe a Bant Humans deck type of thing survives. Deck like that might now be able to play Always Watching, because it probably would have before, but not at the cost of having a non-company hit that is kind of bad on the mana or whatever. Now, like, with the power level decreasing, something like that is pretty good in the deck, and it helps you block tokens as well with your stuff like that. So, I can see that card getting better. The, I wrote down that weird 5-mana enchantment, though I don't think it'll actually see any play, but I know that it would be a hard lock to never be played if Dromoka's Command was legal.
The blue mythic?
Is it a mythic? It's like
Whenever you
metallurgic
cast an instant or
summoning.
sorcery,
It's
a mythic.
That card, if Dromoka's Command was legal, that card would never see a lick of play in a million years.
Sure.
It probably still won't, but it's cool.
The thing I like about that card is it gets away from Defragmentize. Because I think
that
Fragmentize?
Yeah,
Fragmentize.
Fragmentize is the future of Dromoka's Command? Like the
No.
main deck
I
card?
just think like you moving forward, like they're pushing artifacts. If like all these decks are going to be running Smuggler's Copters and the 5/5 and just like a couple vehicles, like this is going to be something where you're going to have like 2 or 3 in sideboard to deal with artifacts or enchantments.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's definitely going to be a hit by splash damage. Like I don't think you can build a deck going into new standard that doesn't have Fragmentize, doesn't have a way of efficiently getting rid of an enchantment or artifact or countering it. And so I think like a lot of the different colors, like green and white are really good at that. Blue has counter spells. Black has hand destruction. And red, you're just kind of, you better be splashing one of the other colors. So
sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting that it dodges Fragmentize. It's kind of like Avacyn or Tragic Arrogance dodging Spell Queller is something that used to matter. It's similar to that, or like Ob Nixilis is another card that like has it's weird and slow and kind of bad a lot of the time, but like it just gets around Spell Queller, so like sometimes ends up being really good because they don't have the right answers at the right time.
Sure.
I think the summoning card can occupy a similar slot in like some spell heavy decks, but also like it's just a really interesting and weird card, and the lack of Dromoka's Command gives us an opportunity like to explore that, even if we're going to there's no guarantee we're going to do so, but like we have the option to try now.
Sure.
And like we have no option to try if people are Dromoka's Commanding you. Like you can't put a 5-mana enchantment in your deck. If you're
It's really tough to do that. At least when the number one deck in the format has 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, and the other enchantment that I noted is Cryptolithrite, which I think is going to be a huge deal.
I got one more for you. I do think Cryptolithrite will be great. I think the servo tokens, the Thopter tokens, the fabricatability, as well as just whether it's Gideon, Arlen Cord, Oath of Liliana, Oath of Gideon, all these token things are going to be pretty interesting to see if Cryptolithrite can come back. The enchantment that I'm thinking of is Fevered Visions.
Sure.
I think this is a deck that, if you look at Standard, wasn't the most dominant deck at any one given point, but did not lose hardly anything. And you can say at least it gained something.
The rest of the world lost Dromoka's command.
Everybody lost Dromoka's command. Instead of Shivan Reef, it gained a fast land, so the mana was better and you take less points. Like, you lose Fire Impulse, but you gain Bombardment. So I think like that at the loss of Dromoka's command and Collected Company, I think the deck got better, and it really depends on how aggressive the other decks are going to be to see if that.
You think that the deck is bad against aggressive decks, right?
I do. I think
agree.
like a Fevered Visions is tough. I think like I tried a lot of things against like the super aggressive decks, like the humans and the spirits. You basically have to take the Fevered Visions out because they're just getting the cards faster than you.
I didn't think of Fevered Visions, but now that we're talking about it, I think that Fevered Visions, there's like people who are like Noose Constrictoring to try to become Hellbent and like playing Key to the City to turn on Lupine Prototype. Like, these are actual things I've seen in decks.
Sure.
You cannot try to Fevered Visions in a format if people are doing that.
See, I disagree because
those people could be wrong, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Maybe Fever Visions is right, and those people are crazy. But if people are doing that, and you're doing Fever Visions, you are going to lose.
Yeah, I think that, like, for one, that's just a small percentage of decks until I see someone stating that, like, hey, this is a deck that a lot of people are going to play. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily something you need to worry about. But I think, like, people moving forward with the blue-red deck will be playing a lot of Unsubstantiates to be able to return the spells. They'll be able to kill the Noose Constrictor, so that this way, they're going to discard their hand, but then you're still going to get them eventually. And one of the new cards I really like is the 2 and a blue instant that returns a permanent from each player. So you can return lands. And I just feel like the new counterspell for 1 and a blue could be in this deck. Like, there's a lot of maneuverability with this deck. And you have to have specific cards.
You have to have a sort of cash out option.
Yeah.
If you're going to play things like that Rune Snag Mana Leak card,
like
in a burn deck, like, you need to be able to turn that into a card at some point.
Okay. Michael Majors is going to beat me with Midnight Oil Harmless Pack deck.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. That sounds about right.
He's just going
to
beat you with some heinous thing.
Enchantments. So
I can't wait for the episode the week after you lose in a GP top 8 to Majors with, like,
I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know how many GP top 8s he has. He has at least 2 because he's beaten me in 2. And
I think he just has 2.
Just 2, and he's just beating me every time. Because I was like, maybe I think I have more than him. I think he has 3, right?
Legacy.
Okay.
Esper Stoneblade.
Okay.
He lost the finals, actually, to Gaudenis Vidigiris, playing Rug Delver.
Sure.
4 years ago.
All right. So, okay, we went over some enchantments. Let's talk about some non-enchantments.
Oh, I got some creatures on my sheet. What do you got?
I got a planeswalker and a creature.
Give me a planeswalker so I can argue with you again.
Tamiyo.
I'm not going to argue about this one. This was great.
I think Tamiyo is a huge gainer, mainly because it fits in a shell of just like that's losing its best card, Collected Company.
Yeah.
And now you don't have these rules stating, hey, you have to have this many creatures. Yeah. Hey, you have to have this many 4-drops.
Exactly.
It slots in perfectly.
Your justification for cutting Tamiyo is no longer valid.
Yeah.
It's been great the entire time. It's been great. It's great now. It was great all along.
To me, it's crazy how long it took people to realize how good that card was.
Well, they realized it. They just couldn't put it in their deck because the best card in Standard was sitting on top of it on the curve.
But like hardly anyone was running it until LSV had 2 at the Pro Tour. And then it was like a staple thing, like, hey, let's play 1 main, 1 side, or 2 in the side, and a Gideon.
I had 2 the first week. And everybody was spell quelling and flashing this and that, and it was bad, but
it could have been a timing thing,
it got
too.
So good. Yeah, exactly. It got so good towards the... It was also really, really good in some situations, but it got super good towards the end of the format, for sure.
So that's kind of just like a blanket statement, not really too much there. If you want to... You got one?
Oh, I think Tamiyo is top 5 cards in the format.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I've seen it tap down Hedron Archive, which is just nutty. I've seen it... It locks down Planeswalker, it locks down Gideon, it locks down vehicles.
For those that are fans of Temerai, the deck that I played in battle, I just want to drop Tamiyo and make Woodland Wanderer draw me 2 cards when attacking and blocking because it's vigilance.
Yeah,
I just
or
want
you
to
could have good
dream.
Cards in your deck.
Whoa. Come on. pay some respects to Woodland Wanderer.
I mean, the Tameo deck that I was testing is 4 Tameos, 4 Verdurous Gear Hulk, and Essence Flux.
Okay.
It was a Michael Majors or Jerry T. It's a Jerry T deck. It just like play Tameo, plus drew some cards, then would like tap their stuff down, Gear Hulk them and attack, and then tap their stuff down, blink Gear Hulk when they block, so that you just put all the counters on all the unblocked things and they just die.
Jesus.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, we got some Metalwork Colossus Combustible Gear Hulk love.
Oh yeah, that's another Michael
Derek
Majors
in there
thing.
with the Woodland Wanderer.
It's got Key to the City in that deck too.
Okay.
Key to the City, Prophetic Prism, Hedron Archive.
All right, why don't we move on to one more gainers, and then we'll go right into standard here. So whatever your next gainer you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, no, I had 2. I can do it super quickly. I had 2 creature types.
Okay.
I generally said that I think spirits are going to gain something. It's going to be tough to find the right shell for the spirits, but the fact that like there's less Lambholt pacifists and probably, maybe not no Duskwatch recruiters. I think there's going to be almost no Lambholt pacifists.
Okay.
But I think there still will be Duskwatch recruiters, but not nearly as many as there were before.
Sure.
So you'd agree with that generally, right?
I think like the Bant decks we'll be playing for, obviously. Duskwatch Recruiter, that is.
Oh, yeah.
Lambholt Pacifist will move to the sideboard, but a lot of people are going to have to choose between that card and Noose Constrictor. And I think more people will choose Noose Constrictor.
I also think that the 2 mana 2/2 that like gives you 2 energy and then taps for a mana of any color is actually really good.
Yeah, Servant, he's insane.
Yeah, and like that might occupy that spot.
Yeah, it's just like
well.
it's perfect early, perfect late. I think that's actually a card that people need to watch out for emerge decks.
3rd turn Tameo.
Third turn Tameo is pretty strong. 3rd turn Woodland Wanderer for 6/6.
Mm-hmm.
Boom!
Better
Doing
than,
it!
You had a stupid Beast Caller Savant in your deck.
I still have that.
Put that thing in your deck instead.
I had it in my deck. I've got 4 Servants and 3 Savants.
You're insane.
So if
anyway,
you go Servant, Savant, Servant, Savant, Savant, Servant, Servant,
yeah,
Savant.
you get your tongue is just in a knot.
And your Woodland Wanderer is a 6/6
it's a
daddy.
6/6, and it doesn't matter that
it's
you can't
6/6 every
speak.
time.
Yeah, so I just think that Spirits is going to get better because I think there's going to be less werewolves for the beginning of the format and less collected companies, and those are also Dromoka's commands. Like anything that was able to play the Spirit game at a more efficient level than the Spirits did made the Spirits deck bad. So like if you could company into 2 giant green ground creatures and race the Spirits, that was good for you. If you could Dromoka's command when they finally were forced to tap out for something, or you could fight their counter spells with instants of your own. This would make your deck much worse, or make the Spirits deck much worse, but I think there's way less instant speed things going on, so I think the Spirits deck stands to gain a lot, especially like a card like Nebelgast Herald, which is like really good because it incentivizes you to flood the board and like tap them down and race and stuff. And like you get really punished by like people who had Languish or whatever.
Sure.
But now with Selfless Spirit to like still insulate against like Kozilek's returns and stuff, and no room for or no collected companies, so you're more likely to have Avacynths in your deck. All these things make like you're much better against removal. So I do think that you are a much better deck as far as on those axes. However, I do think that it's possible that the deck is not good at blocking because it's a lot of 2/1 flyers, and if you're facing down a lot of like small flying creatures, Thopters and Copters and stuff, it could still not be a good format for Spirits because Spirits aren't blocking very like Bygone blocks.
I think it has a couple good things going for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that like Languish is gone, that's a plus.
Yeah.
I think Liliana's on the downswing.
Also a huge bonus for Spirits. Yeah.
And I also think Fumigate being 5 mana Wrath lines up with Avacyn. Avacyn can save everything.
Selfless Spirit.
And Selfless Spirit.
And they don't gain life if the creatures don't die.
Correct.
Which is, I think that card is borderline unplayable against a Flash deck for sure.
We're kind of getting into standard as we're doing the gainers and losers, so we're just going to combine the topics.
Yeah, we're kind of flow seamlessly.
Yeah, so if you want to do I know you got one more you want to talk about.
Oh, yeah, no, it'll be quick. It's just zombies. I think that zombies are better again.
Key to the City. Key to the City.
Key to the City is good against zombies. Or, I mean, in zombies, sorry.
Yeah.
Key to the City is good in zombies. It's, I got hit by so many prized amalgams in our testing session on Sunday. My teammates really, really love prized amalgam.
So, what you're saying is Kalidas stock is going up?
I think that,
because he's a 3/4 with lifelink, and you can't teach that.
I told you that I saw that guy at a softball tournament yelling. He's like, "Realest guys in the room, how you doing?"
Enzo or Cass?
Just some guy quoting them.
That's great.
It was pretty funny.
Ooh, Andrea's buying out keys to the
90
city.
Key to the city. That's pretty awesome.
So how many, is it for the same city or is it for 90 cities?
Do you now have the key to every city?
21 cents each? Holy cow, that's a deal.
That is a deal.
Poppy!
Potpourri. But yeah, I think that the Haunted Dead decks are going to be really good again. I think that whatever you guys called it in testing, Voldaren Pariah.
Oh, Black Avacyn, we called it. Blavacyn.
That card is great. I wrote that down next to Zombies Get Better, but I didn't realize it wasn't a zombie, although I just kind of consider it to be a
Vampire,
zombie.
yeah.
It's just a zombie, though. It's just only in zombie decks, right? Like
it's an Eldrazi horror when you
play it. It's just a really, really good card if these are going to be creature-heavy decks. If people have a ton of Thopters and disposable things floating around, there's a chance that sacrificing 3 creatures might not matter as much, but usually what you see, and this is an interesting point, I think, is that when you've got a card like Pariah making you sack 3 creatures, the decks that aren't affected by the 3 creature sacrifice just have 6 terrible creatures in play. And sacrificing 3 creatures, period, is enough to help you stabilize the board against a deck like that.
Agreed.
Where you're not seeing decks that have, like, really, really good creatures and then a bunch of really bad creatures to pad the really good creatures. Like, I've been working on a few blue-white decks where you have, like, Sky Spawners, Inspectors, Fletcher Mages, Quellers, stuff like that, and then Avacyn and Gideon on top, like that old blue-white deck I was playing for a while. Like, I think that deck is still good in some capacity, and a deck like that can beat Pariah by just leaving Avacyn, but then again, you're only, like, facing off straight up or whatever. You need to clear it out of the way. They're similarly sized. But, like, I just think that a lot of times sacrificing 3 creatures, even when they have a bunch of small creatures, will be enough to get there. And if they're a mid-range deck, which just has like some trackers and quellers and stuff in play,
it's perfect.
It's just amazing there.
Yeah, and it's a threat.
Yep.
Just turns around and says, "I'm going to try that in the game as well."
And you can sack stuff that that just comes back. Like you just sack amalgams and stuff.
Yeah. Andrea's over here, world renowned. Over here, 90 cities.
90 cities different all
right,
around the world.
I've got my last gainer. We mentioned Fevered Visions. That was one of them. So we kind of alluded into that. And then we can kind of talk into Standard for a couple minutes here. A deck that I think has gone away is and can be poised for the return. And the card is World Breaker and Red-Green Ramp. Now, you probably think I'm crazy, which is, partially true. Because we lost Nissa's Pilgrimage.
And
we lost Explosive Vegetation. But what we have is Hedron Archive.
Yep.
Hedron Archive. What we have are Traverse the Uvenwald. We have the new 1 green spell that gets a basic and gives you 2 energy. And we have Oath of Nissa. Now, what do all 3 of those cards do? They allow you to search for a basic, right? What basic do you want? Waste mana.
Yeah, so you can play Ruin in their way.
Exactly.
Yep. I thought about it as soon as you started talking about it.
So, I think this is a deck that people need to pay attention to because the World Breaker Kozilek's Return combo is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And in conjunction with the fact that you agree that enchantments are gainers, people are building decks with Thopters, Copters, Keys to the City, all kinds of artifacts. Worldbreaker's ability of just being able to shoot down and exile one of those is a big game now. Usually it's, okay, I'm going to set them off lands. But now you have the availability to have the toolbox effect to get rid of these things main deck, which is huge because there's going to be decks that fold the Key to the City. You're going to be playing a mid-range war maybe. Let's say you're talking about this Voldaren Pariah deck. How do you deal with that? It's like unblockable. Here's a 6/5, flip Voldaren Pariah.
Yeah.
Take 6, take 6, take 6. Game over. So
they just unblockable Metalwork Colossus.
Yeah.
10 you.
Yeah. and we just had someone put in the chat about thoughts on Chandra. This is a card that goes into this deck. Mm-hmm. It fits normally into this deck. Kills a creature when it comes out if there's only 1 creature on the board. But more importantly, the following turn, you're ramping up to Worldbreaker. Turn 4 Chandra, turn 5 Worldbreaker. Turn 3, you could have played Kozilek's Return.
Yeah.
If you ramped with Rune in the Wake, you can play turn 3.
Chandra's good in that deck just because it adds mana. You can minus kill something, untap with it.
Come on,
this guy.
Josh. Oh, Omar and Ed. We got a little game going on.
Is that
there.
Gene in the back?
Gene's in the back.
Is Gene, Biaggi,
Ed's
and
actually
Omar?
smiling.
I like this.
So I do think that deck is going to come back. I think that World Breaker itself, the card, is just one of those cards that's kind of like went away because the format got bigger than him. Mm-hmm. And now with the format coming maybe a little bit back down to earth, that he's going to come back out and destroy lots of things. Or I should say exile lots of things.
I think that the world where Splendid Reclamation is a better ramp strategy than Explosive Vegetation is the world where you're playing like Cathartic Reunion and discarding a whole bunch of lands or something like that.
Yeah, that.
But then you have to have a bunch of lands to still play Splendid Reclamation. I think Magmatic Insight is a card that would have been really good there. Like Magmatic Insight, Tormenting Voice, and then it's 2 lands on turn 4 or whatever.
Yeah, like I built a deck that had basically what's going on with the Splendid Reclamation. It had Grapple, Tormenting Voice, and Cathartic Reunion. And basically what it was doing 2 things. It was trying to ramp up to get the lands into play while still putting stuff into your graveyard like Bruna and Gisela to make Bracella.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that and like ramping to an early Emrakul. Like these are all things that you can be doing, but I'm not sure that's what you want to be doing. Whereas the red-green deck is more of a straightforward. You know, we've seen this show before, but it's got a couple different twists on it. And people are not, I want to say people will not be as prepared for it because it's not something people are talking about.
Yeah, I also just think that it's not going to be very good if a 1-mana 2/3 is like the operative creature in the format. Like that artifact thing.
Sure.
That red
Kozilek's
creature.
return on the front end, not killing it's huge.
Oh, well, it can kill it. If their artifact creature... No, if their artifact creature is 2 power, or 2 toughness, I mean.
What do you mean?
They play this
Oh,
thing.
yeah, because it
You
dies.
kill their artifact creature, and then it dies because it's 2 damage.
Sure, I'm just imagining that everyone's always going to have the copter. And it's just going to be like...
Yeah, I mean, they will, probably. I think Eldrazi Sky Spawner gains a bunch from this situation, too, because, like, crewing Copter with Eldrazi Sky Spawner, like, you get to crew it with the token. So then the next turn when you untap, you get to, like, play the guy, crew it, hit them right away, have a 2-power blocker if you want, or you can chump with the token and crew it with the flyer. Either way, and then next turn you can crew it with the token and attack for 5 in the air on turn 4. It's pretty good. So I think Sky Spawner is going to see a huge resurgence there.
Okay. All right, well, we've talked about a lot of gainers and a lot of losers.
Oh, I have a question for you.
You have a question for me.
Yeah, usually you run the show.
Just to let everyone know, too, these questions and things that come up, we do not talk about this before the show, so he does put me on the spot. It's good. You get the actual first impression, and likewise,
well, I just think
for you as well.
If you thought about this question, your answer would be worse than if you didn't think about this question.
I don't know how to take that, so hit me with it.
What's better in this new standard? What's more main deckable? What's better? Fragmentize?
Okay.
Or Revolutionary Rebuff? Rebuff is the new Mana Leak, if you don't know.
The 1 in a blue...
Counter target non-artifact spell unless its controller pays 2.
So I'm assuming you're playing blue-white so that you have availability to each?
Which one is better in the format? I'm not saying they're both in the same deck. I'm not saying they're competing for a slot. Which one is more main deckable? Because I've heard people say...
Week 1, I think I'll take the counter spell.
Okay.
Without knowing for certain that there's going to be decks that are running upwards of 10 to 12 artifacts, it's hard for me to say Fragmentize is going to be a main deckable card. And at that, I'd say, like, if you were going to do it, I don't even know what the correct number would be on that. Like, I just think that's just a 2 of, maybe a 3 of in your sideboard, if you're really worried about a specific artifact or enchantment. However, the counterspell you can utilize that so many different ways.
Yeah, it hits everything but artifacts. It still hits a bunch of powerful stuff.
Yeah. I guess it just depends on the deck too, because if your deck has a ton of 2-drops and you're going to be passing with tapped mana, then even at turn 3 or 4, that card is still fine. And it gets to talking about which you kind of alluded to earlier with Spell Queller. Cards like this help out Spell Queller.
Yeah,
because it gives you more options.
Absolutely.
So if you're playing like a blue-white Spirits deck, then I could see this being a fine card in your deck because you actually have Rattle Chains that makes
to
everything
cash
else.
out if you
Yeah, you have this card. You have Spell Queller on turn 3. You
can
have a lot of
Stasis
options.
Snares as you go later on. You can counter something or kill something that's in play. Play that 3 mana Scry 1.
Yep, say goodbye.
Removal
Vegetation and
yeah, good riddance.
They're gone. The ramp spells are
Stupid
gone.
ramp spells.
Pilgrim's Mage. Rebuff hands down, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jerry and them said that they thought that you could maybe, quote, maybe play one of Rebuff.
Sure.
I think Rebuff will be a great card in the format, but I don't think that anybody's going to have the balls to play it week 1, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, it's probably true. I think
I'm
it's
too scared of there being a world full
It's
of
one of these
artifacts.
things, too, like, even if you're right? Let's say it's the right decision to play that. You're probably not going to play against so many other people that it actually is correct. You get what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like, you can look at the meta and be like, man, these are supposed to be the decks that are going to be out there, and I want this card. However, week 1, not everyone, like you said before, has come to terms with these are the right cards I should be playing, these are the right decks I should be playing. So you can, like, make a good decision to put this card in your deck and prepare yourself, but play against
And still
people
get
that were
punished.
unprepared.
Sure.
Yeah.
Have a whole bunch of artifacts in their deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, if you put this card in your deck and you hit, the format is, like, not artifact heavy enough.
Sure.
If this card counters something every game, this card is almost too good for standard. If this card was literally Mana Leak, it would be broken.
Sure.
It's too good to put Mana Leak in standard. If this card is good enough, if the artifact decks also have a high density of powerful non-artifact spells in them, this card is very, very good. But I don't know that people can pay the cost up front. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
you have to choose whether you're going to be okay with getting punished and having a dead card a lot or whatever. There's ways that you can do this so that it's okay. Like, you can play Copter and get rid of it. But, like,
Okay.
Copter and that card are a weird 2 cards to have in your deck. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
You could play, like, if you're going to have untapped mana a lot, you could play the weird, like, Diluting Land.
Sure. Okay.
Gaia Reach
Gaia Reach
Sanitarium.
Sanitarium, yeah.
You could play Key to the City, but again, that's kind of weird with counter spells in your deck.
Okay.
Basically, if you have a way to make sure that it doesn't hurt you and get rotted in your hand, I think it's a good card.
Okay.
I also think that a mid-rangey white deck playing 2 main deck Fragmentize week 1 is totally fine. I think I'll play 4 Rebuff before I ever play 4 Fragmentize. But I think 2 Fragmentize is safer week 1 than 4 Rebuff.
If your deck's playing some kind of, like, looting ability, Key to the City or something like that, then the opportunity cost on it definitely goes up.
Yeah.
Because,
Or you mean goes down.
Goes down, yeah, excuse me.
Yeah.
And you can, obviously, maneuver a game where, like, hey, if you're not playing against that, you can pitch it.
Yeah.
I just think that there's going to be more scenarios where you wish you had a different card game 1. And there's going to, hopefully, if you're only running 2, then even if you play against that deck, your odds of drawing that game 1 aren't necessarily that high. So it's one of those really tough things.
The exchange is just insane, though, right?
Yeah, especially in your deck if you don't have any other way of dealing with that kind of card.
If you kill Hedron Archive with that card, if you kill... It's artifact or enchantment?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kill Always Watching with that card. You can kill...
All the cards we talked about, Cryptolith Rites.
Cryptolith Rite, yeah.
Fevered Visions. The Colossus. Gearhulks.
Even just
No,
allowing...
you can't get Gearhulks, come on.
Oh, they're all 5.
They're all 5, yeah.
Just allowing you to, like, kill 2 things in one turn. Against, like, the mono red deck. Like, you just play, like... I don't know. Maybe you're like a slower red-white deck. You're just like, oh, bombardment your thing, fragmentize your other thing. Like, you can, like... It's like, fragmentize your Smuggler's Copter, and then Kozilek's Return, and all your stuff dies because you don't have an artifact anymore for the... Or whatever,
Yeah.
Like, I just think that being able to double spell if the format is as aggressive as it looks, kills Fleet Wheel Cruiser for 1 mana, kills Dragster.
The Dragster.
Yeah, I don't think Dragster is very good, though.
The 1/1 haste, the 1/2 haste.
The 6/1 haste.
Oh, 6/1 haste. Yeah.
I think the Cruiser is better. 5/3 trample haste. Don't have to crew it the first turn.
Yeah, I like that card. I like that card a lot.
Card's fine. I think that the best one is Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah, it's.
I think that the second best
We'll
one...
see if it lives up to the hype, but it's hard not to. I think the
Well,
card.
last
at
week
its
I
rate
said I
is
thought it
just
was
insane.
overrated.
You did.
And I came around since then. I think it's good.
Just got ran over by the copter.
I just really like the play patterns of it.
Sure.
I like Thraben Inspector or something into it.
I really hope that it makes black-red vampires a deck.
I like Crane. I don't think it will. I think it's going to make other decks better against aggressive decks. Like turn 1 Thraben Inspector, turn 2 that guy.
Oh yeah, that's powerful. That's some powerful
Just
stuff.
block with it.
Yeah.
Sky Spawner or Reflector Mage, bounce your dude, crew attack.
You go to block, they create a creature, then you fragmentize it.
It's a sorcery.
I know, after combat.
Yeah, you can
The
do
same
that.
way like Declaration in Stone. Like,
Yeah. What do you think about that, since we're now talking about standard? What do you think about... Oh, yeah, you could Declaration Stone it after they block with it.
Yeah.
Stasis Snare, I think, is good because you can hit vehicles.
It's great. I think, hitting vehicles, hitting Gideon still is like a big thing.
What about that blue card?
Which one?
I think it's called Ether Meltdown. It's like 1 of the blue, flash, enchant creature or vehicle.
Oh.
Enchanted creature
4/0.
gets -4/-0, and it can't activate its abilities or something. I don't know what it
Yeah,
what
it's
it does, but
interesting.
it's
And
like,
it provides 2 energy.
yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's good.
Yeah. We got some energy. And it goes with that 5 mana, like, steal a creature, control magic card.
Goes with turtle.
You like the Dirtle Turtle?
You don't think that 1/4 for 1 mana is not a good rate?
Hey, man, you don't have to sell me on turtles. There's a Blastoise in my car.
How good does a defensive creature have to be before it's good?
I don't know. You have to ask
Wall
Andrew
of
Brown,
Omens was
Merklurker.
played. Yeah, Wall of Omens was played.
Sure.
Wall of Omens also draws a card. No one played Orator of Ojutai.
All creatures gain a life with a Fumigate in your deck. All creatures now have this ability when dies.
I just
gain a
think
life.
Thriving Turtle into make it a 1/4 into remove your thing, make it a 2/5 is just
Sure.
sweet.
Yeah.
A 1 mana 2/5, you haven't invested any extra mana into it?
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, we've kind of elaborated here on like a lot of the cards and putting them kind of into the decks. Is there like a last thought you want to like give people going into the tournaments this weekend? Whether it's like at your local store because it's still pre-release, there will be some tournaments going on. F&M, this is your first week. What's your like last thoughts for people that are going to be playing standard? Maybe like a real quick expectations type of thing. We talked about a little bit about don't worry about like just aggressive decks. You have to worry about a couple other things too. But what's your last thoughts on it?
And testing's important. I think copying a deck and getting out there without any games under you is a huge, huge no-no. I think that make sure you should build your mana base well. The faster format means that having all your lands come to play tapped, like a lot of people did incorrectly in this past format.
Yeah.
We're going from a format where every land came into play untapped after turn 1, like fetch land, basic, battle land, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there was a format like that. Now we're in a format where people would go like tap land, Reflector Mage, Collected Company, and like just take the first 2 turns off and not be hurt because they would just, get back in tempo and then get ahead in tempo. It's just like the craziest thing ever. Like you didn't get punished for doing nothing for the first 2 turns.
Yeah. You actually kind of got rewarded because your mana was set up for the rest of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And like I don't think we're going to be able to do that anymore. I think that the mana bases need to be built better. I think we're going to see the shadow lands played a little bit to make sure people have untapped lands early.
Sure.
I think Port Town will be good. There'll be turn 1 Port Town, turn 2 Ether Hub will happen sometimes. If you're playing a blue-white deck, which I am always trying to do.
Yeah.
But I think that all the shadow lands, I think that the Bant deck will play lots of fortified villages, et cetera, et cetera. I think Tameo is really good.
Yeah, we both can agree that Tameo is very good. And like for me, kind of looking at it, I am very excited to see the results from this weekend, to see what some of the minds like yourself come up with. I know you'll be working on blue-white and some other things that you've talked about. But I know there's, people that'll be working on ramp, people that'll be working on some crazy combos. And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to seeing what other people think necessarily is good. Mm-hmm. And so I guess leaving off with standard here, moving on to our last topic, just I think I can agree with Kevin. Make sure your mana base is as clean as possible for week 1. I think there will be a lot of people trying to mix and match man lands with battle lands with shadow lands and slamming Aether Hub and getting punished.
Fast lands are good.
I do like the fast lands again,
Thalia's you.
I just think
so many people are going to die at that.
I think Thalia is really good. We didn't talk about it, but it definitely is a gainer in my opinion because like people will be playing these fast lands. And not only that, but they're going to be mixing and matching, like I said, Battle Shadow, Evolving Wilds, Man Lands, and now with Aether Hub, trying to like maybe put that in there too. I know for myself, I've built like 3 or 4 decks that had 2 to 3 colors. And the 3 color decks, it was like, hey, I want Aether Hub, but doesn't make everything else work. So that's going to be something I'm looking forward to.
If your deck is like Thalia into Tameo, your deck is just good, right?
I think so. I think like you're doing something pretty powerful. Like Thalia on the play is going to be destroying a lot of individuals.
Yeah, it just seems absurd.
Unless your deck has all tap lands, and then they tap lands.
I also don't know if your deck should have Thalia's Lieutenant or just like other things, you know?
Yeah, maybe mono white goes a little bit more mid range instead, and goes a little bit like.
Well, I want a Tameo people.
Yeah.
I really want a Tameo people.
Okay.
I kind of want a Green Hulk people too. Like I think maybe Ban
Hulk
Humans
Smash?
is just a beatdown deck. Like
Just get the whole cans.
puts a million counters on their creatures.
All right, let's move into the last topic here.
Yeah, sure.
Wizards announcements. Not going to take too long. We're going to just kind of go over a couple things.
Yeah,
first thing we'll do real quick.
Our thoughts on pile shuffling and stuff like that?
Yeah, so 2 announcements that came out. There was a ruling finally on pile shuffling on that you can only do it once the match has started one time.
I realized I was slowly sinking in my chair.
He's quicksanding over here.
I just lost myself.
This is one of the announcements that was made, along with the banned list not changing at all, which, most people are not surprised that happened. However, I'm a little disappointed, but we can get into that in a second. So the pile shuffling, I think, is fantastic. I think you should be able to pile shuffle your deck when you sit down to count how many cards.
Yeah.
And you should not be allowed to pile shuffle after that. That's my personal opinion. I believe that is probably 80 to 85% of the majority of Magic players would agree with that.
Yeah. It's once per randomization. So once per game.
Sure.
That's fine still.
It's borderline fine. Like, I'm fine with that because now I can actually call a judge when someone tries to do it the second time. Oh, okay. There you go. Chat. Yeah, we got some people in the chat. So it is once per randomization. So, okay, that makes it a little bit better. So no more 2 times before every game, which, eats probably about 30 seconds off the clock just to pile shuffle once. I'd say 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And
you can do it once per search your library.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Hey, thanks a lot for the
follow. Wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you should
The rule allows you to pile shuffle more?
No, you're only allowed to... I'm pretty sure, unless I read it wrong, you're only allowed to pile shuffle after the games 1, 2, going into game 3. You can only do it one time. You can do it
when you sit down and count your deck.
Sure.
And you can do it before game 2, and you can do it before game 3.
Yeah, you're not allowed to do it more than once.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But they're like, you can do it every time you randomize your deck.
All right, we're going to have to call Lifeline in. We'll have to check this out.
Are they just trolling us?
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to read it a little in depth. I kind of went over it over Twitter and was listening to some people tweet about it and their opinions of it. So,
was anybody against this?
I didn't see anybody that was oh my God, putting their flag in the ground type of thing.
Yeah, how could you be against this? It seems fine.
Yeah, it's going to speed the matchup a lot. It's been proven that it's not really helping the randomization. It's more of discounting the cards and making sure that you have a proper count to present your deck.
You can't do it after you mulligan, they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. You're not allowed to pile after a mulligan, so pile shuffle once per draw step.
The interestingness of it is that it's not really shuffling at all.
Sure.
And that's not something that everybody always understood.
Yeah. And now it's came out that's going to be moving forward. That is going to be a thing where if you do it the second time, you're going to cause an infraction and people will be able to call a judge on you. So I'm really excited about it. I guess there's not too much really to go in with it. So the second thing, Wizards announced, like I said, there are no bannings. How do you feel about no bannings in Modern? There's no bannings in any format, but I don't think anyone was expecting anything besides maybe a little shake-up in Modern.
I think people expected Sensei's Divining Top to finally get the axe, and it just should. For the love of God.
Okay.
It is so stupid. Legacy is so stupid.
Okay.
This is the rant. I'm trying to hold the rant back.
Miracles is just one of those decks that, I think is a pillar of the format, and I think a lot of people play that deck as it's very good, obviously. And I just don't think I'm on the camp of you, but I don't play it. Like, I've never played Miracles in Legacy, so I can't really sit here and say, oh my god, it's busted, or oh my god, like, get rid of it, or don't get rid of it because it's fair. But I can agree with you. Like, I would like to see...
Sense's Dividing Top is a stupid card.
Yeah.
It's a stupid card. It makes a tournament last longer. It makes every game last longer.
Yeah.
It literally harms every single person's life.
Do you know how long it made the movie Inception? It made it so much longer.
Yeah.
It was just like, whew. What about Modern, though? For you, this impacts a lot. Like, you're going to Team Unified.
Yeah.
And now there's no changes.
People are saying that they all expected the untapped Drake, to go in Pauper, which is something that we've hinted
Peregrine
that,
Drake?
Yeah.
Okay.
That Pauper might be a more, competitively supported format in the future. People were hinting at that, I guess.
That would be kind of cool.
I would play in a Pauper GP, right? You'd play Pauper GP?
I think so. I would have to dust off some of my casual collection here.
Yeah, but I mean, it's fun, right?
Out. Yeah, I haven't
An
played
elf
it in
deck
such
is
a long
sweet.
time, so I'd have to really go back into it.
I used to battle with fairies back in the day. I had a Pauper deck for a while.
I need to
But
work on that.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, Unified Modern is a whole different animal.
Sure.
Would the people thought maybe they would ban Become Immense? Do you think
Become Immense, I think Simeon Spirit Guide is still one of the ones that people look at and go, man, this does things that they shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, it's
so,
real broken.
Like, every time they do that, I think more or less it's Become Immense, but also you could just be like, hey, Bloodbraid Elf just randomly came back. Like what that would do to modern format in general. And it's kind of, I don't want to say modern stagnant because it's not, and it's forever moving around.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool to see a card like that to be a storyline for the WMC.
There's just a bunch of people being like, hey, Stoneforge Mystic should be unbanned on the internet. And I'm just like, you guys are insane.
Yeah,
as happy as I would be that Stoneforge Mystic got unbanned, you can't unban Stoneforge Mystic. Stoneforge Mystic is broke.
I just think it's hilarious that they did that and then put it as the GP promo.
Yeah, I thought they actually were going to unban it. Which I think that they probably could, but
if they unban that, then Deathrite Shaman should come back.
Deathrite Shaman is fast mana. Fast mana real bad.
Yeah. Stoneforge Mystic is game ender.
Stoneforge Mystic
go get my Batterskull.
A game-winning threat that gives you card advantage, which is the most unbelievable thing ever.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why Jace the Mind Sculptor is good. Stoneforge Mystic is good. They're both the same thing.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this episode we're gonna be running a little short. We're gonna end it. We want to kind of get everybody prepared. Hopefully, we did our job this week of getting you a little excited to play some Standard this week. Get you prepared for new Standard, and we'll kind of move into our closing now. So we got our
For people who are going to come to the Syracuse Regional, if you name SCG Regionals or Kerwins, it says you get a reduced rate, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely. We love doing events in Syracuse. We've been hosting them now for a while. So, regionals, if you haven't signed up, feel free, click on the link. Constant Contact will put you in position to get all that done. Mm-hmm. I know you're going to be doing something the same weekend.
Yes.
But not regionals. Must be nice to be qualified for the Players' Champs. Must be nice.
Oh, yeah. It's
must be nice.
But, yeah, so... There's another SCG Regionals in Baltimore. And that same weekend, there's a giant Legacy and Vintage event, Eternal Extravaganza 5.
There you go.
It occurs, I think, maybe twice a year. Don't know sure. There's a bunch of them that's taking place in Baltimore this year, running concurrently with SCG Regionals. And I am going to be doing coverage.
Yeah, you're going to do coverage with Mr. Ruben Bresler.
Yes, Mr. Ruben Bresler and I are going to be a commentary team for Eternal Extravaganza 5. So if you guys like Legacy Vintage, get out there and play. If not, you should tune in and check it out. I shared the link on my Facebook and on my Twitter and all that stuff. So if you guys want to see that, it's pretty easy to do so. But yeah, it's going to be an awesome time. I'm super excited for the opportunity that these guys have given me to, spread my wings a little bit and stuff.
All right.
Should be fun.
Sweet. Well, with that being said, good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting.
I'm going to be testing. You're going to be grinding. Hopefully we can get another trophy here. Mm-hmm. And as always, it's Kevin Jones, the master of the Manus Rider. And you can't teach that?
That's Dan Ward, and he's 6'6", and you can't teach that. All right.
Everybody
Take
have
care,
fun.
guys.
Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday.
People of Kaladesh, whether you hail from distant fields or greenbelt towns or from our great city centers, this is your time. The Kaladesh Inventors Fair invites you, our best and brightest, to share your ingenuity with the world. As an official entrant, you may fuel your creativity with unrestricted ether access. Demonstrate that you can channel the ether into bold, new creations. Showcase your ideas, your inventions, your genius. In this time when anything is buildable, you can invent your tomorrow